Hello and welcome to Go For It. I am your host, Paul Gant. For the next hour, we're going to be talking sports, having fun doing it. I want all your ideas, all your opinions, and all your beliefs. And of course, as always, you will get a heavy dose of my opinion. Get a lot to talk about this week, just like there's always a lot to talk about in the world of sports each and every day. But, you got the situation with Deshaun Watson. He formally requested a trade at this point. It was always in the mix. It was always in the works. It was always rumblings that he wanted out. But now it's official. Deshaun Watson wants out of Houston. We'll talk about that. Maybe where he's going to land, where he will go. Brady and Mahomes, Super Bowl coming up. That's going to be exciting. We'll talk about that. Brady at 43 years old, trying to get number 7. Eric Bieniemy shut out again. That's not good. Chiefs offensive coordinator, obviously the head of a big-time offense that's won a Super Bowl, that's put up big-time numbers. Patrick Mahomes put up crazy, crazy numbers, and Eric Bieniemy can't get a job. We'll talk about that. And the 76ers beat the Lakers this week. Maybe that's a preview of the NBA Finals. Maybe the Philadelphia 76ers with Doc Rivers are finally on to something. We'll talk about that as well. So let's get right down to it. Deshaun Watson, right? Deshaun Watson now formally has requested a trade from the Houston Texans. The 25-year-old Watson wants out. So obviously a guy with Watson's skill sets, 33 touchdowns, only 7 interceptions this season. And if Watson was anywhere else on any other football team, that team's probably one of the 14 teams in the playoffs. So Deshaun Watson at this point, at this time, is looking to be out, looking to play elsewhere. Where elsewhere is, I don't know at this point. But here's the thing. Houston Texans, they said they're not interested. GM said, zero interest in trading Deshaun Watson. That's what he says, zero interest. But you look at Deshaun Watson, I heard Adam Schefter say this, Deshaun Watson has a no-trade clause in his contract. So the reality is he can kind of pick and choose when, where, how this thing is going to play out. He's got a lot of power here. Schefter said it was similar to an NBA situation. If you look at an NBA situation, let's just look at James Harden recently. James Harden said, you know what, I went out of Houston, and ultimately he got out of Houston. They worked the things out, and ultimately they dealt him to the Brooklyn Nets. So this is the same situation with Deshaun Watson. He now is in position now where he can determine what is next. He can dictate and determine what will happen. And if you're Deshaun Watson, you obviously want to go to a better situation. You look at the Houston Texans. Bill O'Brien was in there, and Bill O'Brien obviously did a horrible job in terms of being the GM. Bill O'Brien had so much power, made so many crazy trades, so many crazy moves, and ultimately those crazy trades and those crazy moves, cost the Texans. It made the Texans not really a good football team this particular season, and ultimately they struggled mightily. 4-12. Bill O'Brien was fired earlier in the season, and they got a new coach, David Culley, there in Houston. So, and Culley said, he took the job with the thought, the idea, the belief that Deshaun Watson is going to be a part of the scenario. So how this plays out is truly going to be interesting. And what happens and what they do in Houston is also going to be interesting. Here's the thing. There's only a few teams that you could say, you know what, you don't really need Deshaun Watson per se. There's only a few teams that you could say, yo, we don't really need Deshaun Watson. There's only a few. And we're going to go through. We're going to go all 32 teams. Who should be interested and who should not be interested in Deshaun Watson. All 32. We'll look at all 32. We'll just throw up the standings, and we'll go through each team, and we'll determine whether or not that team should be interested in Deshaun Watson. It's that simple. There's a lot of teams that should be interested in Deshaun Watson. There's a lot of teams that should want to get their hands on Deshaun Watson. A lot of teams. So let's go through now, and let's look at the teams that should or should not be interested in Deshaun Watson. Okay? Let's go through. Let's take a look. We look at now the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills have Josh Allen. They're good. They're fine. They're okay. The Miami Dolphins, an intriguing situation with the Miami Dolphins. You got Tua there. You drafted Tua, and you look at Tua, and Tua, yeah, just okay. Just okay. And you can't, I don't think Miami can say definitively, this is our dude for the future. And the funny thing is, the ironic part is, Houston traded their first round pick, which turned into, which obviously Miami has now, and it is going to be the third overall pick in the draft. So Miami is in a good spot, in a good situation. Now, if you're Miami, I think I would give the number 3 overall pick and other things to get my hands on Deshaun Watson. I would if I'm Miami. Because Deshaun Watson is only 25 years old and playing at an elite level. You don't know if Justin Fields drops to 3. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence is going 1. You don't know if Justin Fields drops to 3 if he's the guy. Trask out of Florida, if he's the guy. You don't know. But you do know one thing when it comes to Deshaun Watson. You've seen Deshaun Watson do it at a high level in the National Football League. So if you're the Miami Dolphins, I think you should be interested. I most definitely think you should be interested. And I think you should think about, hey, Houston, you want the pick back that you gave us? Hey, in the Tunsil trade? Why not? If you're Miami, with what they have, they got a solid defense. Brian Flores looks like be a good coach. And Deshaun Watson, and you have the chance to get him, you're Miami, you should be in the mix. New England Patriots, you obviously should be in the mix. You obviously need a quarterback. Your quarterback, the great Tom Brady, your former quarterback, the great Tom Brady, he's elsewhere, right? He's about to play for a Super Bowl. He's about to play for number 7. And you decided that, you didn't really want him at this point. And, ultimately you guys, Tom Brady decided to go elsewhere. But if you're New England, find a way to get Deshaun Watson. If you're the Jets, find a way to get Deshaun Watson. It's that simple. Let's go to Pittsburgh Steelers. You're a team with Ben Roethlisberger. Find a way to get Deshaun Watson. He's getting a little older. He ain't getting younger. He's not getting any younger. It's time. If you got a chance to get Deshaun Watson, get him. Baltimore, you're good. You have Lamar Jackson. Cleveland is intriguing. I like Baker Mayfield. I like him a little bit. And he put up some decent numbers this year. But if you had an opportunity to get Deshaun Watson, if you're the Cleveland Browns, would you do it? I think you would have to. So Cleveland should think about Deshaun Watson and think about whatever they can do, whatever package they can put together to get him. Cincinnati Bengals, you have Joe Burrow, you're good. Tennessee Titans, you have Ryan Tannehill. Again, you should be interested in Deshaun Watson. Tannehill's solid. I know he signed that new deal. Tannehill's solid. Took him to the playoffs the last 2 seasons. He's a solid quarterback. But again, you should have a level of interest in Deshaun Watson. He's an upgrade over Ryan Tannehill. Indianapolis Colts. Philip Rivers has retired. You still got Jacoby Brissett there, but still, Deshaun Watson's out there. Hey, if you could put a package together to get Deshaun Watson, you should try. Houston, that's where Deshaun Watson's at. You should try to keep him. You should try to talk him out of it. You should try to get in his head and say, you know what? We could build some things out around here. David Culley's a solid coach. We got a new organization. Maybe you want to stay. I doubt that happens. You're the Jacksonville Jaguars. Go get Trevor Lawrence. You got an opportunity to get a quarterback who could be a generational guy. Go get Trevor Lawrence, all right? Kansas City Chiefs, you got Patrick Mahomes. You're good. Las Vegas Raiders, you should be in the mix for Deshaun Watson. Derek Carr was solid, but Deshaun Watson is an upgrade. If you have an opportunity, if you could put together a package to get Deshaun Watson, you should get Deshaun Watson. Los Angeles Chargers, you're good. You have Justin Herbert. That guy looks like he could be a special guy. Great arm, great ability, can do a lot of things. You should not be in the market for Deshaun Watson. Denver Broncos. Yes, John Elway has been looking for that quarterback. He got lucky with Peyton Manning. But ever since then, he's tried a Paxton Lynch, a Drew Lock. He's got to find a quarterback. And that's been a struggle for John Elway, trying to find a quarterback. You should be in the mix for Deshaun Watson. So try your best, put something together, and see what happens. The Washington football team, you need a quarterback. Dwayne Haskins doesn't work. Obviously, Alex Smith, he's just okay, but he's just a guy who's – Alex Smith is Alex Smith. He's solid at this point, but he's not anything that's going to take you very far, you need to be in the mix for Deshaun Watson if you can. New York Giants, Daniel Jones has shown flashes, has shown the ability to do some big things, has also shown the ability to turn the football over. If you are the New York Giants, you should be in the mix for Deshaun Watson. You should try to put together some type of package to get yourself Deshaun Watson. Dallas Cowboys, interesting. Dak Prescott, I would assume that he is in your future. I would assume that they'll find a way to bring him back. But maybe you say to the Houston Texans, hey, we got Dak. We'll throw in a first rounder or two. We'll throw in something else, whatever you want to get Deshaun Watson. If you're Houston, you're saying to yourself, well, that's not necessarily a bad deal. That's not a bad deal if you're the Houston Texans, because Dak Prescott is a solid quarterback. And if he's healthy, he's a decent option. We'll see what they do. I don't think it happens, but it's something to think about. Philadelphia Eagles, that's interesting. You got Carson Wentz. You got to determine what you want to do there. You owe him a lot of money. You're probably not going to be able to do anything with that, so you're probably not in the mix. But hey, if Jalen Hurts, I don't really know what he is. I don't know how high I am on Jalen Hurts, and I'm not. Carson Wentz, I don't know what he's going to be going forward. Philadelphia should theoretically be in the mix, but hey, I don't think they'll be in the mix. You look at they owe their quarterback way too much money. They're pretty much stuck. The Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers had an MVP season, but Aaron Rodgers after the game at the press conference was talking a little different. Was talking like, hey, I'm not so sure about my future. If you're the Green Bay Packers, maybe you do have a level of interest. Maybe you throw Aaron Rodgers and something else at the Texans and say, we want Deshaun Watson. I don't know. Chicago Bears, no, I don't think that's happening. You should be in the mix. You need a quarterback. Find a way to get him. Minnesota Vikings, you need a quarterback. Kirk Cousins is good, but Deshaun Watson is better. The Detroit Lions, absolutely, Matthew Stafford wants out. There's some talk about him and the Rams, but again, you need to upgrade the position. Stafford doesn't want to be around. Do something. New Orleans Saints, do something. You got to do it. Drew Brees is probably going to retire. Now you could argue, Jameis Winston, Taysom Hill there, but again, you have a chance to get Deshaun Watson, give it a package together, do it. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they have a 43-year-old Tom Brady who led this team to the Super Bowl this year, right? But Tom Brady is 43, and 43 is 43. He's not getting any younger. He's not Benjamin Button. It ain't going back. The time ain't turning back. So a decision to make. But obviously, it's probably not going to happen. But if you're Tampa Bay and you have an option to get Deshaun Watson and you can put together some kind of package, give it some serious thought. Carolina, yes, you should. Atlanta, you should think about it as well. Seattle, now you got Russell Wilson. You're good. The Rams, yes, you need to think about it. Arizona, you're good. And the 49ers, yes, you need to think about it. So those teams, are teams that maybe should think about getting their hands on a Deshaun Watson. So whether or not they actually get their hands on Deshaun Watson, whether or not they actually are able to pull the trigger and get the job done is another story. But it's clear Deshaun Watson wants out. He said it. I mean, it's requested it, according to sources. So he wants it. He wants to be out. He wants to be in a different situation. And I think this guy, Deshaun Watson, he's got the power in this particular situation. So how he wields his power, how this whole thing works out is going to be interesting. But clearly he wants out. And, he's a guy, the whole situation with Bill O'Brien, how he just gutted that team, got rid of key pieces, got rid of his number one wide receiver, DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, just made some interesting and curious moves that ultimately depleted the football team, took some of his assets along the way. And now they're looking and trying to find their replacement, replacement for some of the talent that was lost. But they have a decision to make with Deshaun Watson. Maybe they could play hardball. Maybe Watson sits out. I mean, a lot of things could happen, but it appears that a move has to be made, and they have to maybe start thinking about life without Deshaun Watson, excuse me. I think if the Miami Dolphins approach you and are willing to give up that pick that you traded to them in order to get Deshaun Watson, I mean, I think that's a great move for you. I think it's a great move for Miami. And, I mean, the guy doesn't want to be there, clearly. So do something, make it work, and we'll see how it all works out with Deshaun Watson. But he wants out, and he wants to go in a different direction and be in a different place. So Super Bowl is upon us. Well, we still got another week. We still got to go through the week, but Super Bowl week is coming up. Teams will descend on Tampa. Obviously, Tampa is already there in the mix. They're playing their home state the first time. That's happening, but Tampa Bay is already in the mix. The Buccaneers out there in Tampa Bay going to play at their home stadium, which is an advantage on some level. 22,000 fans will be in attendance, and obviously Super Bowl's open to everybody, so it may not be a quote-unquote home crowd for the Buccaneers. But, hey, it's your home stadium. It's a stadium that you're familiar with. It's a stadium that you know a lot about, so obviously that's going to help. It can't hurt. It can't hurt to have to play in your home stadium. It can't hurt to not have to travel, right? None of those things can hurt. So you're sitting at home in your crib, and you don't have to go anywhere. So that can't hurt if you are at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That can't hurt at all. So we'll see how that whole situation plays out. But, hey, Tom Brady in his 10th Super Bowl. Unbelievable, man. It's unbelievable what this dude is doing at the age of 43, right? I mean, he wasn't great against the Green Bay Packers. We've seen the 3 interceptions. That's not good. That's definitely not good. But, again, he did enough. He did enough. He made enough plays. When it was playmaking time, he got a first down for that team, right? And it was on a pass interference, questionable pass interference. And it's questionable only from this standpoint based on the way they were calling the game. That's why it was questionable. It was questionable based on the way they were calling the game. They let those guys fight. They let receivers and the DBs fight it out, hand fighting and everything. So based on that, it was a questionable pass interference call. But at the end of the day, it still was the right call. So at the end of the day, Brady is off to the Super Bowl. And the Kansas City Chiefs, they look unstoppable, unbeatable. The only way somebody can beat this team is something happens to Patrick Mahomes. He is dealing with the turf toe situation, but he appeared to be good enough against the Buffalo Bills last week. He was solid. He was good. They got down early, but ultimately they came on back, and they came on back hard. They came on back strong. Patrick Mahomes played great football, put up some great numbers, did some great things. Tyreek Hill, Kelsey, Hardman. I mean, the list goes on and on. The weapons that is around Patrick Mahomes is special. It's speed everywhere. So much speed. Just jumps off the screen, all the speed that the Kansas City Chiefs have. So it's a team that obviously I don't think the only thing that can stop them is them. I mean, Tampa Bay, the way they got into this Super Bowl was defense, creating turnovers. I mean, they created 2 turnovers against the Packers, created 4 turnovers the week before against the Saints. So they had the turnovers, but ultimately they turned those turnovers into points. So they cashed those turnovers in. They got the turnovers and they were able to cash them in. Will Kansas City give them that? Will Kansas City give them those turnovers? Will Kansas City do the things that the Saints did? Will Mahomes do the things that Breeze did with 3 interceptions? Will Mahomes do the things that Rodgers did? Rodgers threw 1 pick, and Rodgers, albeit put up decent numbers, wasn't ultra sharp in that particular game. So you expect Patrick Mahomes to be sharp. You expect Patrick Mahomes to make play after play after play. It's going to be interesting. I mean, obviously at this point, I'm leaning towards Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. I didn't think, many teams can beat this team if this team is healthy, if this team is right. I mean, the Kansas City Chiefs and Mahomes is right. Man, I can't see it. I can't. I can't. I mean, anything is possible in a football game. It's one game. It's not. Now, if these teams were to play in a series, I think Kansas City would beat them. But obviously, it's one game, and anything can happen in one game. And also, these teams did play in the regular season. If you remember that game, Kansas City jumped down on them early. Tampa Bay closed it, got close. But ultimately, they could not overcome that deficit. And ultimately, they lost the game. And Tony Romo said, he said it at the time, maybe they were going to see these 2 teams were going to see each other, meaning Tampa Bay and Kansas City. And ultimately, they saw each other. They'll see each other, and they're going to see each other on this big stage. It's going to be fun, man. I'll tell you that. It's going to be some fun football. And this is still a week away, and a lot of things can happen. Anything can happen at practice. Anything can happen. But if I'm looking at a week away, I can't see the Kansas City Chiefs losing. I can't. I thought Buffalo had the best opportunity, the best chance based on the way they were playing. I mean, Buffalo was playing maybe the best football coming into these playoffs, and in general, Buffalo was playing some very good football. And the thought process was Buffalo, being a hot football team, maybe could have beat the Kansas City Chiefs. The thought process was Buffalo, with that prolific offense of Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs and their ability to put up numbers and put up points, you thought maybe Buffalo would have an opportunity. They did have an opportunity, but they made too many mistakes, and they just could not stop Mahomes in the Kansas City Chiefs. But hey, there hasn't been anybody that has stopped Mahomes in the Kansas City Chiefs this season. I mean, that team is that good. That offense is that special. Those playmakers are that good. So there's a lot that the Kansas City Chiefs have that it's going to be difficult for anybody to beat, overcome, and ultimately it's going to be up to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, which has played well in these playoffs. They're going to have to step up again. I mean, they're going to have to, get after Mahomes the way they've got after Aaron Rodgers, the way they got after Drew Brees. That's what they're going to have to do, that pass rush, Shaq Barrett and JPP, Jason Pierre-Paul. Those guys are going to have to be able to get after Mahomes the way they've gotten after everybody in these playoffs. That's what they're going to have to do. And they're going to have to be able to create turnovers, because the turnovers was the difference for this football team, and cashing in those turnovers. I mean, those two, the fumble that they got to start the third quarter, and then that, ultimately they cashed in, turned into a points, and then that interception in the end of the first half by Murphy Bunting that ended up with a Scotty Miller touchdown. Inexcusable, unacceptable situation. No way that should have happened, but it happened. And ultimately, those plays, those turnovers, were key in the victory for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So we'll see what happens in the Super Bowl. It's going to be interesting. And the fun part is that Tampa Bay is playing in their home stadium. Never been done before. Never. So that's going to be fun. That's going to be interesting. But how it all turns out, it should be, we'll see. We look at now, going to the NBA, we look at the Philadelphia 76ers. And the Philadelphia 76ers on top of the Eastern Conference at this point. Philadelphia on top of the East, controlling, playing some decent basketball. Obviously they play good basketball when Joel Embiid's in the lineup. And when Embiid's in the lineup, this team is tough to beat. When Embiid's out of the lineup, well, it's a whole different story. It's a whole nother story. This team is totally different. They're not the same basketball team without JoJo. And that's clear. That's, it's obvious that is the case. Now, Embiid is playing at an elite level. Embiid is playing at an MVP caliber level at this point. So, hypothetically speaking, obviously, in order for you to be considered for the MVP, your team has to be playing some good basketball and have to be one of the top teams in the conference. And Joel Embiid and the Philadelphia 76ers have the best record in the East. And Embiid averaging 27, 11 rebounds, one block shot a game. Joel Embiid is putting up some big-time numbers and playing some big-time basketball right now. And he's one of the reasons. I'm not saying the reason, but he's a big reason why. Because obviously it's night and day. When he's in the lineup, Philadelphia is very successful. When he's out of the lineup, we've seen it. They've struggled, and it hasn't been pretty. The times that they lost without Embiid, it hasn't been pretty. And, talking to other fellow Sixers fans, the team in some respect they're hard to watch without Embiid. When Embiid is not in the lineup, the Sixers become hard to watch. They're not the same basketball team without Joel Embiid. They're not. So they become difficult to watch. You see Ben Simmons, his offensive struggles are magnified a little bit when Embiid's out of the lineup. Everybody has to do more than maybe they're accustomed to doing and maybe what they can do. So it is always a tough situation when Embiid is out. But the key for the Philadelphia 76ers, and, when I watch this team, I always pay attention to those late game situations, because I look at this basketball team and I say to myself, well, this team doesn't have what you call a closer. The 76ers don't have a closer. And Joel Embiid, albeit a great player, is a center, and it's difficult for him to be your closer. Ben Simmons, obviously, not enough confidence in his offensive ability, not enough confidence in what he can do on the offensive side of the ball. Jump shot is really not fluid, and everything for Ben Simmons is to the cup. And he doesn't necessarily go strong to the cup. Only time you see Ben really go strong to the cup is when he dunking the basketball. Outside of that, he's got some flip shots here, flip shots there, but it's not strong. He doesn't go strong to the basket. So Ben Simmons on some level, is a liability in those late game spots. And it came up against the Lakers, a late game spot where you had Tobias Harris now got the ball, and ultimately they got the switch. Caruso was on Tobias. Tobias was able to go left, was able to pull up, hit the jump shot, and give the 76ers the victory. It was obviously it was a good play call by Doc Rivers. And one thing about Doc Rivers has some good play calls down the stretch there. Puts together some decent play calls and puts guys in position to be successful and to have success. And remember with those Boston teams, so always had those guys, some good possessions down the stretch. Man, he used to have some good possessions, some good late game spots, and good late game situations. Had those guys in good spots and good positions. And you saw that in this late game spot. They had, Tobias Harris in a good spot. Didn't have to go full on. Had to take a couple dribbles. All you had to do, Tobias had to take 2 or 3 dribbles, pull up and hit the jump shot. That's all he had to do. Didn't necessarily have to go top of the key, everybody off to the side and Tobias just go. No, he put him in a good spot. But here's the thing about the 76ers. The way this team is presently constructed, I'm still not sold. I'm not sold on this team at this point because I don't think they have a full-fledged closer. Tobias Harris had a moment, right? But I'm not counting on Tobias Harris to be able to do that all the time. He had his moment, but I'm not counting on that every time when it comes to Tobias Harris. I'm not. But he did have a moment, and we got to give him credit for having his moment. But again, I'm not counting on Tobias Harris in those spots. And I know Tobias is playing some good basketball. Tobias is playing some really good basketball right now. Doc Rivers thinks he's an all-star. And, yeah, there's a good possibility that Tobias, if the 76ers continue playing at this level, there's a good chance that Tobias could be an all-star. If the Philadelphia 76ers continue playing the way they're playing, there's a chance that Tobias could be an all-star, averaging close to 20 points a game, around 19 per contest, and playing some good basketball. So, yeah, there's a chance Tobias Harris is averaging 20 points a game. So there's a chance that Tobias could be an all-star. And Doc Rivers had success with Tobias in Los Angeles with the Clippers, and he's having success also with Tobias this year. And also the key with Tobias, last year he was playing the 3. This time he's playing the 4. So that puts him in a better spot. He was better at the 4. He's not a 3. He's not a 3. I don't think he's athletic enough to be a 3. But he's good at the 4 spot. He's good at the 4 spot, and at times can cause mismatches at that spot. So what should Philadelphia do moving forward? I mean, a lot of people want this team to add that closer, add that guy that you can just get a walking bucket. They want them to add a walking bucket. Zach LaVine is a walking bucket. He can get a bucket. I mean, Bradley Beal, leading the league in scoring, he's a walking bucket. He can get a bucket at any point, any moment, at any time. So they wanted them to get James Harden, meaning the Sixers, but ultimately he went to Brooklyn. So a lot of people want the 76ers, to get that closer, that quote-unquote guy that can give you a bucket at any moment, at any time. And so Bradley Beal is that guy. But the thing about it is, can you get Bradley Beal without having to part with Ben Simmons? And that's not going to be easy. In fact, that might not be possible. Maybe it is. Maybe they can construct a deal, with a bunch of picks and, maybe Tyrese Maxey, maybe, Shake Milton, maybe Matisse Thybulle. I mean, I don't know. Is that enough if you're Washington to want to give up Bradley Beal? Washington, I think at this point does have to think about blowing the situation up. I mean, they had last year it was a team in development because John Wall wasn't playing. Ultimately, John Wall wasn't playing. And then ultimately you had the situation with Bradley Beal. He wasn't playing. He missed the bubble situation. So you look at the Washington Wizards, that's a team that needs to think about blowing this whole thing up and figuring out a new direction. So Washington, they covering the team last year, right? I covered the team during the bubble. And the thought was they were looking towards next year. With getting John Wall back, having Beal, re-signing Davis Bertans, and putting that all together to make something. And ultimately, they decided that, hey, we want to trade John Wall and bring in a Russell Westbrook. And Russell Westbrook hasn't been very good. He started out the year decent, getting some triple doubles and things of that nature, but it wasn't translating to wins. And now, he had a quad situation. He came back from that. But the past few games was been a struggle for Westbrook. I think he has 163 points on 163 shots. So that's all you need to know about Russell Westbrook this year. 163 points on 163 shots. So Washington, and no one's taking Westbrook's contract unless you're going to take another bad contract back. The Wall and Westbrook trade was basically two bad contracts with guys maybe on the other side of things. Wall's playing some decent basketball, actually, in Houston. The thing with Wall was health. His skill set, his ability was there. It was health. And the thing with Westbrook, the shot is off. A lot of things are off with Westbrook. You wonder, I felt like Russell was on the other side of things. I love Russell Westbrook, but I felt like he was on the other side of things. I thought he was a declining asset on some level. But at the same time, I didn't think he would go down this soon, right? You look at remember Allen Iverson when he got traded from Denver to Detroit. When he got traded from Philadelphia to Denver, they still put up big numbers. But when he got traded from Denver to Detroit, the decline was there. You saw the decline and the numbers dropped. And it may have been a bad system for him, but ultimately he struggled elsewhere. He bounced around, went to Memphis, ended up in Philadelphia. And that was it for Allen Iverson. Ultimately, he ended his career in Turkey. So the thing is, Russell Westbrook, I don't know, man. He's a declining asset, 32 years old, and I don't know if it's going to get any better for Russell Westbrook. I don't know if it's going to get any better. So, but the thing is, you're stuck with them. They're stuck with Westbrook. Again, unless they bring a bad contract back, they are stuck with the Brody, Russell Westbrook. It's that simple. They're stuck. They're stuck. So the only thing that they can do, I think, is trade Bradley Beal and just gut this thing. I think, you were wondering maybe if they should have gutted it last year and just said, you know what? But there was so much optimism with Wall, the return of Wall, and the return of Bertans. There was so much optimism with the Wizards. Rui Hachimura there, Thomas Bryant also in the mix. There was so much optimism. Ultimately, Bryant had a partial tear to the ACL. He's done for the year. Rui's been in and out of the lineup. He had some pink eye at one point, and now he's been out of the lineup in terms of health and safety protocols. I believe he is back now. But it's been so much in and out. And look, watch him. They got shut down for 2 weeks because of health and safety protocols, pretty much AKA COVID-19 situation. And so the season's been disjointed. But at the end of the day, the talent level is not there. They don't defend. Washington does not play defense. They don't defend. And if you don't defend in this league, you can't win. They're not good enough to outscore teams. They can score a lot of points, but obviously they're not good enough to outscore teams. So they have to defend, and defense is a mindset. And obviously the roster that they have, they don't have guys with that defensive mindset. They don't play defense, and if you don't play defense in this league, you're not going to win. You can outscore guys, but they don't have what it takes to outscore teams. So I think at the end of the day, Beal seems committed to wanting to stay in Washington, but I think at the end of the day, if you're Tommy Shepard in the Washington Wizards organization, you have to think about, what are we doing here? We're clearly not having success. We're clearly we tried. We brought on Westbrook. We have on paper a decent backcourt. Thomas Bryant before the injury was decent, but he's not a defensive guy. Rui decent, but he's not a defensive guy. So Washington has to figure out what is next. And I think clearly what should be next, right? And I know we were talking about the 76ers here, kind of got off a tangent with the Washington, a little bit off a tangent with the Washington Wizards, but Washington needs to think about blowing the whole situation up. Needs to think about blowing it up. Bradley Beal, is clearly frustrated. I mean, you feel for the dude. What game was that? It wasn't Houston. It was the San Antonio game. The man just had his head down. And he was just like, man, I feel for this guy. He's putting up all these numbers, scoring all these points, and they're just losing game after game after game. And then you have, again, the frustrating situation with COVID. And again, so you felt that man's pain. You felt the pain of Bradley Beal and what he was dealing with there. You felt it, man. I was like, man, I feel for this dude. This dude is playing his heart out, and he's not getting the job done. He's playing his heart out, and he's not getting the job done. So I feel for this dude. So they got to figure that out. But I think Washington needs to think about making a trade. And maybe Philadelphia can come up with some kind of package. I don't know how you do it without giving up Ben Simmons. And maybe you say, we'll go give rid of Ben Simmons. And, if they decide to do that, which would be interesting, you would have a situation with Beal, Embiid, and probably Tobias Harris. He could figure it out. But I think the ideal situation is to try to find a way to keep Ben Simmons. Because here's the thing with Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons can do a lot of different things. His versatility is off the charts. He can defend multiple positions, maybe every position on the court, depending on the matchups. And this dude is an elite defender. It's weird. That's not what we were talking about with Ben Simmons when he came into this league. But this dude is an elite defender. But the only thing with Ben is he hasn't grown any part of his game except the defense. And the defense is one of those things, is energy and effort. He has the athletic ability to be a good defender. So the rest is energy and effort. So he's got the energy, he's got the effort, and obviously he has the athleticism to defend. And again, he's turned himself into Bruce Bowen? Nah, he's not Bruce Bowen. He's very Bruce Bowen. But, I mean, he is, you could argue that's the best part of his game, the defense. That's the best part of his game. The passing ability is definitely there, but you can argue the defense might be the best part of Ben Simmons' game. So, we talk about Ben, and, he's a winning player. He can be a winning player with his skill set, but the problem becomes with the way this team is presently constructed, he has to be able to do something. And we saw him, different drives to the basket against the Lakers. He ultimately did have a triple-double against the Lakers in a losing effort, but a triple-double nonetheless. So we'll see what happens when it comes to the Philadelphia 76ers. They appear to be for real, but how for real they truly are is something we'll have to figure out as we go forward. So another offseason, and Eric Bieniemy is shut out once again. I mean, Eric Bieniemy, offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs, played the game. A guy that's been the leader of one of the best offenses in football for the past few seasons. A guy that's been a general as a leader of an offense with a Patrick Mahomes who's put up some big-time numbers, even won a Super Bowl. I mean, if Eric Bieniemy, it's you never like to say it's racism. You never like to talk about, say, this is a racist situation. But it's odd that a guy like Eric Bieniemy cannot find an NFL job. That's odd. Guys who, you got guys who haven't called plays. You haven't got guys who have all this, doesn't have a lot of experience. And these guys are getting jobs in this league. Eric Bieniemy is the head. The guy that are calling, he's the dude for this offense, for the Kansas City offense, and he can't find a job. It's crazy. Josh McDaniel, this guy had a job with the Kansas City Chiefs. Ultimately, he backed out, but not Kansas City Chiefs, the Indianapolis Colts. He backed out of the job, but why was Josh McDaniels in position to get the job with the Indianapolis Colts? Because he was behind Tom Brady's offense, the offense in New England. He was the guy. He was the OC there. And that was an offense that was successful. That was an offense that won Super Bowls. Eric Bieniemy is the OC here in Kansas City. A guy that's got him that, last 3 seasons, Mahomes was an MVP, I believe 2018, 2019 last year, got him to a Super Bowl, won a Super Bowl. Now he's back in the Super Bowl again. So what does Eric Bieniemy have to do to get a job? There's really nothing. There's reports out there that he didn't interview well, so on and so forth. I mean, I don't know what that means. What that could be code for whatever. But Eric Bieniemy has done enough in terms of orchestrating and running the offense to Kansas City to get himself a job. Eric Bieniemy can't do anything else. There's nothing else Eric Bieniemy can do at this point to get a head coaching job. There's nothing else he can do. I mean, it's almost blatant in terms of the racism in this. I don't know if it's racism. I don't know if it's, obviously people want to hire people that they can relate to, right? That are familiar to them. They're not, not many black GMs, right? There's no black owners. So the thing is, they're going to be able to relate to maybe something that looks like them, something that is relatable to them. Eric Bieniemy, you would think, has done enough. You would think in a league that has 70+% African Americans, you would think in the NFL, the players, 70% of the league are black. So you would think you would want a person that is relatable to the players. It would make sense on some level. And Bieniemy, a guy that's had success. It's not like this dude hasn't done nothing in this league as an OC. It's not like he's done nothing. He's done pretty much everything that he could do. Everything that he could do at this point, he has done. There is nothing left for Eric Bieniemy to do at this point to get a head coaching job in the NFL. There's nothing left for him to do. He can't do anything else, right? I mean, there's nothing left for him to do. 1 Super Bowls, big time, head of a big time offense. There's nothing else he can do. So Eric Bieniemy is on the outside looking in, trying to get an head coaching job. There's talks that he didn't necessarily want to be a coach. He made that clear in the press conference, I believe it was last week or 2 weeks ago, that he wants to be a coach. So why can't Eric Bieniemy get a job in the NFL? I mean, is it racism? I mean, you hate to call it out like that, but that's might what it be. It just might be racism. It's that simple. But Eric Bieniemy has done enough to get himself a job in the NFL. And why he can't get a job, I don't know. And we saw Nick Sirianni, not drafted by the Eagles, but, hired by the Eagles to be the head coach. And you saw his press conference. I didn't see anything that jumped off. He had some rambling speech, something about, making things simple and things of that nature. I didn't see enough from that interview, at the press conference. I didn't see enough that blew my socks off. Dan Campbell for the Lions. I didn't see enough that blew my socks off. I mean, the guy was just sounded like a buffoon, right? Campbell sounded like a buffoon, an idiot. But he's got a job. So there's no way that Eric Bieniemy can interview as, I see Nick Sirianni stumbling and everything. Campbell sounds crazy at the podium there. So I don't know what – Eric Bieniemy must have just been stumbling over each and every word. There's some people saying he was a bad interview. I don't know. But it's hard for me to believe that the dude that done so much that he can't get a job. It's hard for me to believe it. Like, it doesn't make sense. It's irrational. It's just – I don't understand it. The only thing that could make it understandable is that it could be just racism. It's that simple. That's the only thing that could make it understandable to me. Or it just could be or like I said earlier, it could be a situation where I'm comfortable with this type of individual. And again, those who are in a position to hire tend to hire those who might look like them or who might sound like them, who might even talk like them. It's that simple. It happens. So that's really the only thing I can come up with here. Racism. I don't know. I don't really know what else, another way to say it. I don't know if there is another word. I don't know if there's any other way to explain why Eric Bieniemy does not have a head coaching job in the NFL. He has done any and everything. He's done everything he's needed to do. There's really nothing else he can do. There's really nothing else this dude can do to get a job in this league. Nothing. Nothing. There's nothing he can do. There's nothing he can do. This dude has done everything you would think to get himself a job. There's really nothing else he can do. Nothing. Nothing he can do. Nothing. Nothing he can do at this point. Right? Can't do any more than what Eric Bieniemy has done. Offensive coordinator of the best quarterback and the best offense in the NFL over the past few seasons. Nothing else. Nothing else. Nothing. Nothing. Patrick Mahomes threw 50 touchdowns, 5,000 yards passing, under the leadership of Eric Bieniemy. Nothing else he can do. Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs won a Super Bowl under the leadership of Eric Bieniemy. Nothing else he can do. Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs are back in the Super Bowl with Eric Bieniemy as the offensive coordinator. Nothing else Eric Bieniemy can do. He's done everything that needs to do. If you looked at his resume and you read his resume, Patrick Mahomes threw 50 touchdowns, and he was the offensive coordinator. They got to the AFC Championship game that year. The following year, they got to the Super Bowl with Patrick Mahomes and that prolific offense. Won the Super Bowl. That looks good. Let me look at the last part of his resume. This guy has his team in the Super Bowl this year with a great chance, a legitimate chance to win another Super Bowl. Wow. Who's the guy behind this offense? Who's the guy behind this great offense? Eric Bieniemy. And he still cannot sniff a head coaching job. Shame on you, NFL. Shame on you, general managers around the league. Shame on you, owners around the league. Shame, shame, shame. Eric Bieniemy deserves a job in the National Football League as a head coach. And if it doesn't happen, and it hasn't happened, there's an issue, there's a problem, and it needs to be fixed. It's just that simple. The resume is beautiful. The resume is off the charts. The resume is ridiculous. The resume screams of a guy that should be a head coach in this league. That's what the resume points to. And this guy is still on the outside looking in. Josh McCown got an interview with the Houston Texans, right? Josh McCown. And, it just doesn't make sense. You look at Jim Caldwell, right? Jim Caldwell had success with the Indianapolis Colts, won a Super Bowl with the Indianapolis Colts. Got him to the Super Bowl. Didn't win, they got him to the Super Bowl. Jim Caldwell went to the Lions, had success with the Lions, got them to the playoffs multiple times. Had success there. And ultimately, he got fired. And the Lions haven't been the same since. Matt Patricia got the job. And ultimately, he got fired. Now Dan Campbell gets the job. And again, did you watch his press conference? Did you watch him? Come on. So there's really nothing else to say. It's just NFL has to figure some things out. And obviously, it's still a league that is still not giving guys the best opportunities to succeed. Guys of color, not giving them an opportunity to succeed, at the coaching ranks, at the general manager ranks. It's kind of really that simple. I mean, I would think, again, if 70% of the players in the NFL are black, right? And Jim and Eric Bieniemy, this is, again, had the success that he had, it would make logical sense. Logical sense. You would think that you can get a guy that might be able to relate to to a bunch of your players. And a guy that's not a scrub. And a guy who's been under Andy Reid, who's learned under Andy Reid. Andy Reid, arguably could go down maybe one of the best coaches in National Football League history. I mean, Andy Reid, before he came to Kansas City, pretty much did everything that he needed to do except win a Super Bowl. Andy Reid, got to the NFC Championship game 5 times, got to the Super Bowl once, lost in the Super Bowl to the New England Patriots. But once he came to Kansas City, I mean, at that point, his resume was big time. Andy Reid's resume was big time. And then Andy Reid ultimately came to Kansas City, still continued to success, drafted Patrick Mahomes, and, turned Patrick Mahomes into what Patrick Mahomes is today. I mean, Andy Reid, his ability to draft quarterbacks, whether it's Donovan McNabb, whether it's Nick Foles, for that matter, whether it's Patrick Mahomes. Andy Reid knows quarterbacks and knows how to develop quarterbacks. Turned Donovan into a borderline Hall of Famer. With Patrick Mahomes is going to be a Hall of Famer. If Patrick Mahomes stays at this level, more often than not, he's going to be a Hall of Famer, more than likely. So Andy Reid, Eric Bieniemy is learning under Andy Reid, who, again, arguably maybe one of the best coaches to ever done it. And, he's learning under him. Obviously, Andy Reid is giving him recommendations. I mean, why can't he get a job? You look at Doug Peterson, who was on Andy Reid's staff. And Doug Peterson got a job with the Philadelphia Eagles and had success. Obviously, he did have success. He won a Super Bowl, but now he's looking for another job because he was fired by the Eagles. But the point is, Doug Peterson went off to Andy Reid's tree and got a job. Was on Andy Reid's staff and got a job. And Eric Bieniemy is on the Andy Reid's staff and can't sniff a job. So, again, not to belabor the point, and I'm about to get off of it, but at the end of the day, people who are in position to hire, again, tend to hire those who look like them, tend to hire those who might even act like them, right? You almost, if you're hiring, you're like, let me get somebody maybe that's like me. I don't know, But at the end of the day, Bieniemy deserves a job, and him not having a job does not make sense. We're about to get out of here now. Make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel. Make sure you like this particular video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. We got videos each and every day all around the world of sports, NBA, NFL, everything, boxing. We cover all the sports. So make sure you come on back to this channel. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. Make sure you support this particular channel. For everybody here at Go For It, we hope you have a great week. See you later. Take care.